Maybe I'll just, I bench myself. Yeah.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Merrick.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thanks for coming tonight up for a special meeting. We wanted to talk to the City Council about the Broadway City Hall project. It's been something that the Council and the community, frankly, have been dealing with for years, if not decades. The city received over 100 bids for its bid opening on the project, but there's a lot of layers to it. It's complex, and so we wanted to provide an opportunity for the Council to ask some questions, not only of staff, but of Wold and Krause Anderson related to the outcome of those bids, to put you in a position where you can again discuss at your regular meeting on May 7th, this coming Monday. So tonight we're not looking for any formal action at tonight's meeting. What we're hoping for expectations, you should expect the history and current status of the project from a financial picture. You'll get an explanation of the estimate process from both Wold, Krause Anderson, and in sections where they've overlapped. An explanation of the bid results, and then a review of some value engineering concepts. We've set it up in a way where you can ask and have questions answered throughout the presentation, so it's not meant to be, we'll present all the information and then you ask questions at the end. You know, it's kind of a stream of consciousness. The meeting goal is to frankly provide some information, or give you the information that you need, answer questions, and solicit requests from you to provide for the Monday meeting. So some finance history. In April 2017, the City Council finished the concept phase of the project. That was led by Leo A. Daly. We had two task force working on the project. It was a building footprint or size of just over 8,500 square feet, and the estimated project cost was just a shade under $4 million. In October of 2017, the design phase of the project increased the size of the building from 8,500 square feet to just under 10,500 square feet. The result of that size change, along with the commercial kitchen, some other factors, just kind of the overall design of the building, increased the estimated project cost to $4.75 million. And then in January, Krause Anderson and Wold approached the council regarding a revised estimate for the project. Through a series of cuts and increases to overall project budget, a gap of about $400,000 was met to increase the estimated project cost to $4.95 million. The cuts also included restructuring the city's bond schedule to save on capitalized interest. The pitched roof over the council chambers area of the building was taken out, and a couple of other value engineering items. Getting to this past April and in May, once again over 100 bids were received as a part of the project on April 19th. The bids for construction put the total project over by $217,711, bringing the project cost to $167,711. That does not include the $50,000 contribution that the city is planning for a commercial kitchen upgrade, which would bring the total cost of the project to $5.217711. So from this point, I'm going to turn it over to Joel to describe the process that Wold used for their estimate process, kind of going throughout the project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The process that Wold and Krause Anderson take kind of a belt and suspenders approach in that we both do our own independent estimates. We typically start a project in the first of three design phases, schematic design, with just a cost per square foot general, a building's 10,500 square feet, and it's going to cost $250 a square foot based on our past history. We actually took the extraordinary step of hiring an independent consultant for that initial phase to do a cost estimate line by line to help make sure that we were comfortable at both design development conclusion and construction documents conclusion before we go out to bid. Our internal team of mechanical and electrical engineers and civil engineers do a takeoff of quantities, very detailed takeoff of what sort of materials and labor are going to be used on the project. We get quotes from vendors who are providing things like air handlers or generators or other big ticket items to understand what current pricing of some of those big ticket items are. At the same time, we hire a third-party estimator to do an actual takeoff of materials and quantities for the general construction, the structural shell, the brick exterior, the interior finishes. They incorporate our mechanical and electrical and civil engineer numbers into their estimate, add overhead and profit and insurance and other contingencies, and come up with a number at the bottom that they feel is very indicative of what the project is going to bid at. Knowing the climate, knowing what projects are coming up, what pricing on materials has trended, what labor contracts are coming up for renegotiation, all those things are factored in to get a very detailed, I think the estimate we get back is about 12-page long spreadsheet of all the different tallies that come up with it. But we do that all internally as a check to make sure that we feel that we're tracking with the budget at the multiple phases. And I know Crouse Anderson does something very similar, but independent from us.
Our process is that our project managers take the lead on an estimate. Working in conjunction with our pre-construction department, we have in staff mechanical engineers, architects who help assist with putting together the estimate. We do a detailed takeoff, quantify square feet of flooring, walls, you name it. We also reach out to contractors who are in the bidding market and have them help us and take an early look at the project too, and confirm that our numbers are in range of what we're looking at. Not only that, we like to look at our backlog of what we've recently bid out and kind of do a comparison square footage wise to make sure that what we're seeing is in line of where our totals are coming.
I think that we were, both of our firms, we get together then and share our estimates. And we were both pleased that when we brought the numbers together, we were less than $10,000 difference in our estimate at the time we went out for bid. I think one thing I failed to mention was, we take bidding of our public projects very seriously, and every Monday, all of the associates at Wold reviews the previous week's bids and understands how they compared to our estimates to know, are contractors seeming to be more aggressive? Are they going after projects and are projects coming in under our estimates or over our estimates? So that gives us, real-time, week-by-week feedback on how the bid market is doing. And as I reflected, this sheet came out yesterday from our office. The past couple of weeks, every project was right on the estimate or slightly under the estimate. And in actuality, our estimates were really darn close to the low bids on bid day. The low bids were slightly under what we had both estimated for this project. So it gave us confidence that we could have good bids and hopefully come in well under budget. So that's, I guess, the tone going into as we went out to bids.
I can tell you a little bit about the bidding process. We've got a software system called iSquareFoot.
Did you get your voice back?
Yeah. We've got a software program called iSquareFoot. We identify subcontractors to go out to do the bidding. And we sent out an early planning invite for them so they knew when it was coming up so they could get that on their schedule for estimating. And then when the plans were ready, we sent those out. And then they can respond if they're going to bid or not. There's a spot where they can confirm if they will bid. And then after about a week's time, we send out an email, and we get responses back that way. And then based on those responses, we start calling through and making sure that we're getting coverage. So we're talking to a lot of the subs that maybe didn't respond yet, and then we'll talk to them, and they'll say, yeah, we're gonna bid. We can go into the software program and we can check that they're gonna bid, so we can see that we get good coverage. And on this, we did get good coverage. We were at about 135 bids, if you figure the combined bids that we got, and that's really good for right now. And it shows that people are out there. They're still very competitive in going after work right now. Our mechanical numbers, we had good response with mechanical bids. And yeah, basically we, once we get all the bids in, open them on bid day, and then we go through and we call the low bid and we talk to them, make sure that they've got scopes covered. We make sure that their bids have come in and are done properly. So I spent some time talking with Larry Harris on some of the bids that did come in with irregularities and what would be acceptable, what would not be acceptable. And we had a couple of them that we had to go to the next bidder. And between those two, it was probably about $3,300 more to go to that next bidder that had a properly submitted bid. And then from there, when we clarify that they've got all the scope covered, they're good with their number. In the event that they're low and there's a pretty good gap to the next one or the next group of guys, we review that with them, make sure that they haven't missed anything in their bid. And I mean, we're not trying to award to people that miss stuff, so they have that opportunity. And if they do miss stuff and they're comfortable taking it still at the number they've got, then they're able to accept the contract. So we write a recommendation for award letter that we give to Brent on all the apparent lows on this.
You want to transition to the bid results? No? Is that the next on the page?
Yeah, so the page you've got that shows up at the top left, there's a work scope number, and then it just goes right down the list of all the different work scopes. And these are basically all of our low bids, low bidder based on line E, and then it shows the low number that's come in, and then a cost per square foot, and then either over or under estimate. With this, we had some over and under. We did see that plumbing and HVAC came in higher than we expected. A few reasons that we figure for that on talking with our in-house mechanical specialist and some others around the market is that the building doesn't have an economy of size when you figure that it's got a kitchen in it as well. Typically, our numbers are going to be, they're somewhat skewed because of that kitchen being in there, and then also the size of it. I know as we were going through our early estimates, and we were looking at what the overall square foot number was for mechanical, if we would have said we were going to be at $69 a square foot is where we're at today, if we would have said that back then, our mechanical specialist would have said there's no way that we would be there. So our numbers definitely came in a little higher than we had estimated at that time. We also had an earthwork number that on bid day came in, and it looked like it was a good number. They actually did not figure in for soil retention, which is basically a temporary wall so they could get work done without the levee sloughing into the project itself. And in trying to do it without any kind of a temporary wall, which is on your third page, I guess, if you look at that, there's an example photo of what a retention wall would look like. It's an H-pile and timber retention wall, and that would go in temporarily, and that allows them to excavate at a deeper depth to do our soil corrections on the job site. Without that, you've got to do a one-to-one cutback on your soils, so you'd have to extend further out into the levee, basically, on the backside. So in doing this, you're able to do this safely, and we're not going to allow a contractor to go out there and do it and basically incur an OSHA violation or anything like that. So they've got to do it safely. So our second bidder had that figured in. They also had soil corrections figured in, because we do know that there are some soil corrections from our borings. They had that figured in. And then he also had just some dynamics of the site figured in. He's going to have to haul some of the material out because the site is so small that as they're doing some of this work, some material's got to go and then come back. Just because there's not places to stockpile it, we'd be probably infringing out onto the street and stuff if we tried to do any of that. So they've got all that figured. So they've got that. We had our a number for carpentry came in, and it was actually a number that was written in wrong, and so they pulled their bid. The bid runner made a mistake, and they came up and approached us right after the bid to show us what had happened, and then later they confirmed it. That was a 6A carpentry, and Kellington was the next number, our apparent low. Then Capital City Glass was our second for glass, and the original low bid, they actually filled out the bid form incorrectly, and Larry was not comfortable with the way it was filled out, so it was an unresponsive bid. And the same was for in fire protection. And that's why I highlighted those in green, just to show that those were bid scopes that we had to do some extra vetting and figuring out with Larry on what we do with them.
So this might be a good spot before we jump into Wold on maybe some project scope. If the council has any reactions or questions related to the bidding process or the estimate process.
I'm still a little confused about the mechanical, the plumbing, and the HVAC. Because there was a kitchen, it came in that much higher? I mean, who did the design for the building, for the mechanical? Did we?
We did it.
Yeah,
We did.
yeah, well, yep.
Okay, so, I mean, you knew the kitchen was gonna be there, right?
Oh, yeah, we estimated it, absolutely. Estimated all of the sheet metal, all of the piping and, the supply water piping and the drain piping and all of that. Exhaust hood and came up with much lower numbers as our estimate.
And I did reach back and talk to some of the mechanical bidders, and I asked them, well, first of all, we had quite a few, so I was kind of asking them, are you guys all just kind of full and you're just, filling your plate more? Is that why we're seeing the numbers higher? And the response was that they're actually competitive still out there. There's still enough guys that are still looking for work. So, I mean, they felt like their numbers were competitive.
So I hear that the estimate was wrong. We're talking at like 31 feet here. We're down on the ground looking at plans, and I'm not gonna do that. What's your fee? What are we paying you guys? 300 grand?
Between our site our fee is $71,500, and then we have site services for project management and superintendent.
Okay, so ultimately, we're paying you 300 grand to do this project, correct? Approximately. What's your fee?
150, I think.
Okay, so we got 300, 400, $450,000 into this before we start. Accurate, give or take. We have HVAC and plumbing that, if you do the math, is double, more than double where we need to be, correct? Than your estimate. We've already added $200,000 of our money to this project on top of cutting $200,000 worth of what we were sold in the first place. So I look at this and I see we have done nothing wrong. We are being asked again to either accept bids that are higher. I'm looking at a cost per square foot. Is this accurate? $346.13. That's what this building is costing. What is the new Kraus Anderson headquarters? 100,000 square feet? 250 million? It's $250 a square foot.
Yeah, we do buildings
Okay.
that are, I'm sorry, I shouldn't interrupt.
No, I mean, I get this sheet metal and, you know, when we had Stantec architect the transit station, you know, at least steel was more expensive, and it came in. I'm not sure what we're being asked here are we being asked that if we want this building the way that we were sold at 4.5 or 4.7, whatever the number was, which includes the 200,000 that we're adding and 200,000 of deductions of things that we took off the building, we have to essentially come up with, and this 298 is wrong, so it drops down to 217 with the 50,000 and everything else, correct?
Yeah, there was soil corrections included on the other budget sheet.
Right, yeah.
And other things that are.
Soil
included
corrections,
in
and
this-
then also that 50,000 that we were funding through a different portion for the kitchen, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So in order to get the exact same building that we thought we were getting a couple meetings ago, we have to come up with the extra 200,000 before. We cut 200,000, and now we're asked to come up with another 220,000. I mean, nutshell. Let's stay at 10,000 feet. That's what we're being asked to do. But you get, okay. Is there that much economy and scale in a 100,000 square foot building over a 10,000 square foot building that it would be $100 a square foot?
Yeah, I
I
can't
mean,
say-
don't
can't
estimate,
say-
don't estimate, that doesn't seem to be doing us well right now. Sorry, that was a
I'd
dig.
say absolutely. We budget $250 a square foot for new buildings that are 50,000 square feet, no problem.
Okay. Can I just get one more explanation on the HVAC going from an estimate of 334 to 461? The why? Like, what was the reasoning when you talked to the, I mean, it's ductwork in a furnace.
It's,
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to be super flippant, but at the same time, I mean,
I don't think you are being flippant, but I work for a mechanical company, and when I
Allen
when I
Mechanical.
told the guys how much this was, they were like, "What are you putting in that building? How many clean rooms?" You know. So they were just kind of shocked.
What did the,
Granted, they haven't seen the plan, but they do a lot of work, and they were shocked at the square footage price, even with the kitchen.
so what, I mean, what were their reasoning that it came in that high? Or we estimated that low?
the answer we're getting is that's what the cost is. So yes, our estimate was low on that. We thought it was gonna come in closer to the number we estimated, but when they started putting everything together, that's what the subcontractors, the bidders said it was gonna cost.
And can I ask another question about the mechanical bids? Is the labor going to be union labor? Because that's expensive, but I mean, is it?
We
'Cause
did
if it's
not,
not, then I'm really shocked.
I don't remember if Centrasota's union. I don't think Falcon is union either. We did not
Wow,
require
then
prevailing wage or union
I'm
labor.
hugely shocked. Not that we're not using union labor, but that the price is that.
Part of the problem with a smaller project is you can't take a bunch of guys and spread them out. That you can on say you have a 100,000 square foot school, you can have a group working here, a group working here, a group working here. On a smaller project, they come and do their part, they gotta leave and wait for the next guy to come in. You can't just take them and slide them, so there's a lot of moving in and out.
Did we know this was a smaller project going in? I mean, I want us to put stuff on the table here. I don't want excuses. If this is what we're with, let's talk about it. I mean, we knew going in it was gonna be a smaller building. We've got plumbing, it's water, it's pipes, it's bathrooms. It's 83% over. I mean, Well, they forgot a wall.
Well, that being said, our estimates were only 150.
The wall was not, at the time we were doing the estimates, we did not know we needed the wall.
You didn't?
It probably wouldn't have been so bad if it was only the wall that we're dealing with here. But now we've got constituents to answer to, and it's feeling hard.
In your earthwork bids, that includes excavation, move all dirt out, and then put your wall up, and then fill it in, right?
It didn't include putting the wall up, that's what they're saying. Okay, well, then you were wrong. You just said that the bid included putting up the wall, and it didn't.
The current,
Well, the current bid did, yes, it did. The estimate
the
did not.
estimate.
Our estimate was to do knock down the building, dig out for the footings, backfill. We had an allowance in there of $50,000 for soil corrections. The geotech, when he started doing his analysis on what the building was gonna weigh, there's a layer of silt 13, 14 feet down below the ground, that this geotech was concerned with settlement on the building. So then the geotech came back and recommended that we'd have to dig that down 13, 14 feet deep. When we dig down that deep, then there's a concern that where that, the levee abutment, we'd
Collapse.
undercut it, and there'd be a concern that it would fall in. So at that point, the geotech recommended that we dig this out, but in order to do that, we had to put up this temporary retaining wall that at the time we weren't aware of and did not have that in our estimate.
That was after we got the bids?
After we did
After we did the meeting in January.
for the financing.
Didn't we do soil boring? Didn't you have soil borings there? I mean, didn't we?
The geotechnical engineer waits to see the final design of the building before making their final recommendation of what gets included in the site documents. So they can calculate the weight of the building, and the building changes footprint slightly.
Are we
sometimes.
paying him?
Are we? Yes, I believe that there's a line.
No, I mean, are we paying him to be part of this project? Is the city paying him
Yes.
prior to the estimate or prior to the bids? Or after the bids?
It's a professional service direct to the city,
Okay?
and I'm not
So
sure.
when did we do this, is my question.
So Braun did the work. They initially did the borings last summer.
Yeah.
Okay, but my point being is, when did we find out we needed a wall? After the bids came in?
No.
Before the bids, but after the January meeting when we revised the budget.
Okay, so after the January meeting, when we revised the budget, then we found out that we need a wall. Then why isn't it included in the estimate so that when people are going to bid?
Because this estimate we're showing here is the estimate we had in January. Because this is what, this estimate, this DD estimate is essentially what we called when we met in January.
So you forgot to put it on here. Somebody did.
No, I was trying to show it on this, so it would be more of a comparison of what it was when we last met. In our overall budget, we did add in some costs for that, and that's why I think you handed out an overall budget sheet that shows our overall budget, we went up $180,000 from when we met in January.
Yeah.
At the time before we went out for bids, that's.
Yeah,
what we
we decided to cover that. Am I correct? We made $200,000 worth of cuts and decided to cover that extra 180?
And then the wall came up that cost another nearly $200,000.
Why are we hearing about that now? Or did we hear about this long before this? And I'm totally missing something.
I think that what we tried to express during our discussion about the estimates was that we were very consistent about how our estimating came in, and that all of our information showed that the bid market was performing better than our estimates at the time. So there was optimism among our team that we would be able to absorb that cost.
How's the
on bid
team
day.
now?
Not too optimistic, but it actually, bid day was pretty good.
I have a question, Mike, if
Please.
Okay. So when we were talking about the bids that were coming in and some that were rejected for different reasons, and I know that you said Larry Harris wasn't comfortable with certain items on it, were the bids that were rejected that might have been lower, was it because we think they might be substandard or not capable of doing the work, or is it because there was some clerical errors in their bid?
They did not fill out the forms correctly because we had, we had 3 line items to get, try to maximize tax exemption. So there was a labor and equipment line, a materials tax exempt line, and then what would be a typical line to bid, which would have labor and equipment, materials, including tax on that line. And we had a couple of these bids, they gave us one number, and it was in the labor and equipment line, and that was it. And that was deemed unresponsive. Now, had they put that number on line E, where it was supposed to be, to show that it did in fact include labor and equipment, materials, and tax, they would have been fine.
So let's say they had, let's say the number, I'm just going to throw, let's say the number said 3,000 and it was in the wrong line. Would that number still be the correct number had they written it in the right place? Or was it underbid on higher up and they just clerically put it in the wrong position?
They clerically put it in the wrong position. I mean, from the way we looked at it, you could see where the number was as opposed to the next numbers.
Okay.
And you could see that, well, we implied that the number they've got would include tax, labor and equipment, and materials, like a typical bid. They just had it in that wrong line item. That was supposed to be a breakout for labor and equipment.
So we obviously don't want to do these bids for people, but if we are looking at the fact that we received lower bids that we rejected under clerical reasons, that is a little bit tough for me to swallow. If it's performance reasons, then I can understand if we don't think the contractor is good enough to take care of it, isn't large enough, doesn't understand the scope. But we're rejecting things under clerical that could be saving us money.
Per your general
Question.
counsel.
Was the difference in the bids? Did I hear somebody say $3,300?
Yes.
Okay, so it's,
In one of them, or were there multiple?
2. One was $916, the other one was like $2,200, something like that.
And those were the only ones that were rejected as lower because
Correct.
they were clerically wrong?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we did have a few others that showed up, but they were further back in the bid forms, like they were like the 5th bidder or something like that. We had like maybe 2 more that showed up where they put it in the wrong line. I had several conversations with subcontractors to explain to them how to fill out the bid form, because they don't see this very often. It's not used very often by cities or school districts and that.
Okay.
And we actually did recommend that those be accepted, that irregularity be accepted, because we felt like you could explain what they meant to do, and Larry was not comfortable. Yes, yes.
Well, I'm sure there's some legal reason for that. Okay.
So I think, Joel, if you want to transition into the,
So there are items that we've developed all along and still can consider as methods to try and reduce the cost. And we have comparison renderings, the different views that we've shown you in the past, both the base bid and the proposed cuts to share with you what the impact would be. So the renderings are numbered, there's little numbers keyed in the location. So number 1 is the gray area across the front is a concrete retaining wall that sits on a foundation, and then on top of that concrete retaining wall is a guardrail to prevent people falling over that wall. There's also a door into the kitchen and stair down towards the alley area. It's in base bid. Item number 2 is on top of the building. It's the equipment screening around the rooftop air handling unit. That you can see showing up in dark, projecting above the parapet. Item 3 doesn't show up on this view, but is on the less visible facades, would be to replace the brick with a siding material. Number 4 is the smaller peaked roof that remains over the corner that reaches a higher elevation, to remove that metal peaked roof. And then number 5 is along the length of the multi-purpose room on the first floor. over the, I'll call it the front patio, there's a canopy that was designed to provide some scale, some differentiation from the other buildings, and also a small amount of cover for people who are stepping outside of that multipurpose room. So if we go to the second, it's gonna go, okay, so the next rendering shows the exact same view, then without, or with those elements removed. So you can see that instead of a gray retaining wall and metal railing across the front of the building, we have eliminated that and just graded a landscaped area down to the sidewalk, still keeping the higher platform all the way over to the flagpoles and creating an area for the flags to be presented. There still would be a sidewalk and patio area in front of the multi-purpose room doors. You can see that up above the building, the rooftop screening has disappeared around the air handler unit, and actually the air handler from many vantage points might not be seen. It's the added size by the screening. You have to set the screening away from the mechanical unit so that they can get between the screening and the unit to service it, so it makes it look bulkier. But with that bulk removed, there's certainly from coming down on 4th, you might see it, but from Broadway, maybe not. You can see the peaked roof over the corner mass is eliminated, and then also that canopy over the multipurpose room patio is also eliminated. So the rest of the views all contain the same elements, so base bid.
All right, let's hold on one second.
So-
Courtney has a question.
Just according to my MassCom math, those changes, those 5 changes don't even get us anywhere close to $100,000. Oh, there's more? Okay. All right, sorry.
Those are, I should mention, that's pricing that we've had some preliminary feedback from the low bid contractors on what the value is. They haven't seen any drawings about what the changes might be, but just some verbal communications on these 5 items. So going around.
Track record isn't great. I don't know if I buy it, so.
All right, the siding on the side shows up here on the alley view. The rooftop is not visible. I'm sorry, this is base bid. Switch over to the next one. There you can see we hold the brick towards the front of the building, do siding towards the back. Again, it's all the same strategies, but just showing you the different views. Still very historic building, very much broken down into the 3 masses.
Can you flip back once to the before it and after again?
So there's before. And then after. So the corner, this really emphasizes that peaked roof on that corner before and then after. And then coming down 4th, the backside, this shows off the element related to the siding instead of that right portion being brick, as the 2 different colors of brick is shown in this base bid option. We would look at that being the siding. That's it.
I think if we do those changes, it will look completely stupid. I
So-
mean, like nothing, like,
They're the least
Unfinished.
expensive, most impactful things.
Yeah.
You know, Brent and I talk a lot, and it's not that expensive to look first class. It really isn't. And we just eliminated everything first class about this building. But we're going to have options here in a minute, so let's keep
So,
talking.
yeah, related to Councilmember Johnson's question, we did some estimates, but it gets, to 80 to 90,000. In order to get all the way, and we had a discussion just prior to the meeting about what it would take. And we're using estimates, so I was like, let's not speculate, but, topics or concepts included reducing the size of certain rooms, shelling out the commercial kitchen, so it was just kind of shelled out for a future use, shelling out the council chambers, so it was just, you could make the improvement, you know, at a future date, and so they just seemed, and without having costs for that, it just seemed too abstract to put into this context. So that's kind of gets to the scope project. The second piece, and this is something that the council talked about last summer, so I'm not anticipating that anyone has a vivid memory of this. But our long-term financial plan did contemplate a contribution from the Water and Sanitary Sewer Fund to fund the project, from $150,000 from each of those funds. And this is what I'd call a common occurrence within our financing models. For example, the salaries of the utility billing clerk, accountant, city clerk, in my position are all partially paid. Like 20% of my salary is paid from water and sanitary sewer. So there is a piece in there. We've been holding it back as kind of a supplemental contingency. The current project budget also maintains a construction contingency of $180,000. And, you know, I should note on the contingency portions, anything that's not spent is still the city's money. So it's just because it's budgeted for doesn't mean it needs to be spent. But this is kind of a general overview. The reducing scope, depending upon how extreme you want to get, doesn't really, it could get you there, but I would say the common scope changes don't. And to some of your comments, you know, they may or may not significantly impact the project depending upon your viewpoint. And then the cash infusion option, or a hybrid thereof, exists within the enterprise funds. So again, our purpose tonight was to give you the background, both from a financial perspective, from a process, from a next steps, and then solicit comments, we'd really like to have this information or have this collected so that we can turn around and prepare something for you for Monday. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to act Monday. I think you have 60 days to approve the bids, so if you need some more time to contemplate.
Well, I think what I would like to see is us have a work session on this at our meeting before Monday. I think we need to talk about it. I don't think we can sit here and, we've already paid them. We own these plans. I don't mind waiting 6 months and having them either redone and come up with a building that works. We've been doing this for 8 years. I have a very difficult time looking at my neighbors saying, oh, by the way, this is going to be a lot more money than we anticipated. I already catch enough crap about wanting a new city hall. And then if this sheet gets, it's public property. Can you imagine what the guys at Harvey's would look at the plumbing? When we estimate $136,000, it comes in at $250,000. I can't sell this. I need different options than saying, hey, you guys, this is a really cool building. This is what we showed you. It's first class. We loved it. It's great. All that stuff that you saw and that you liked, it's not there anymore. It's a cinder block building with siding on it.
Can I ask a question? Obviously certain portions of this have us in a frenzy a little bit. Is it allowable to go back out for bid on certain portions of this? And for instance, the plumbing and HVAC out to companies that design, build, and see if we get better prices?
We always have the option to reject all bids. and
Does it
go
have
back.
to be all?
Does it have to be all?
You can
No.
reject
Within,
Just the ones?
Any or all?
any or all.
Okay.
within one category, you could rebid easily.
You just need to be careful which ones we pick, because otherwise it'll hold up the project.
I don't care.
I'm just
I
saying
care.
that because we did have an alternate in there, thinking that if we push this back to kind of get out of the summer construction, we could save money. It was actually an add of $125,000 to push back the start of this project to August. So I just want to put that out there that a delay could cost more in the long run. I would also say, I'd also warn that people now know where these bids are at. We've had other projects where we picked and choose some to go back out and rebid, and they actually came in higher because somebody who's low brings their number up some, saying, oh, I left this much on the table. If I put my number up another 20,000, I could still be low and still get the job. I'm just warning, it's a chance, it's something we can do by all means. I just want to throw it out there that there's a certain amount of risk that you're taking rebidding.
Well, I mean, the
either that or just
plumbing
pay it now.
the plumbing and HVAC are further down the line. I mean, so you could try it. I mean, I don't know, I mean, those two were so high.
If I could add to your question, to the answer to your question, at Wold, we typically will look at bids that come in and certainly question when something's higher than our estimate and try and understand why. But when we see 5, 6 bids all tight together in that pack, it's not an anomaly of one bidder who shot high and happened to get it because he was the only person, or the company was the only person. We have a pretty solid pack that says this is the cost of the plumbing, this is the cost of
How
But
many
did you still
plumbing and
ask
HVAC?
why?
How many plumbing and HVAC
Cindy.
bids did you have? Just curious.
And did you still ask the question, why? Even if there are 5 of them there, why?
Yeah, we do. And I mean, the answer, as was said before, that's what it
market.
We
costs.
probably had close to double digit.
How the heck were you so
Sorry, I can't hear
low?
Sorry.
It was close to
Honestly.
double digit in both of them.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I
help me,
guess
help me.
That's just,
I mean, if I got 17% right on a test, I don't pass. And you guys are just sitting here saying, well, that's what it is. You sold us, and part of what we were looking at is $136,000 DD estimate. It came in at 200, it's 83.4% high. That's a fail. You're asking us to cover this because that's what people say the cost is.
I would like to clarify that one of the things we do internally is combine our mechanical and electrical estimates and look at the sum total. And the sum total of the estimates that we did align perfectly with the bids we got. The mechanical was a little higher, the electrical was lower.
Yeah, please.
So I think I echo the disappointment that everybody else has shared. I'm not sitting with real high confidence at this point. This is really, really disappointing. Are we rushing you guys? Is there a communications issue that we're all blindsided by this wall issue for the earthwork is completely unacceptable, and that we're hearing about it after there's a $200,000 item added to this project.
$250,000.
So, no more surprises. How can we fix, are you guys being rushed? We want this done as soon as possible, but if that's an issue and we're experiencing these kinds of things, how can we not have any more surprises
Wow.
like the wall going forward? And I get it that it's a little bit the nature of the beast, but that's something that should have been communicated to us.
At this point, we've bid out all the work scopes. Unfortunately, I can't tell you we won't have another unforeseeable thing. If we start digging up under the building and we find something no one knew was there, I don't know what more to tell you. We've bid out the job. We send it to the contractors. This is what they've come back to us telling us this is what it's going to cost to build this project.
Right, and that's that's what scares me the most, is that we don't have a shovel in the ground yet, and we're already hundreds of thousands of dollars over budget.
You guys looked at us when we were trying to choose an architectural firm. And the question that was asked of each and every council member was, do you want a budget building or do you want a building? And we all said we want a budget building. I think to a T, everybody said we want to stay within budget and we'll stay and get a building that hits a budget that we came up with. So essentially what you're asking me to do by putting this forward to the public that I represent, who, it's a little different when you guys go off to Minneapolis or St. Paul. These are my neighbors. These are the people that I see when I walk with my wife, go down to the community park. And now we said budget. We did everything that we've been asked to do. You asked us questions, we clarified, and here we are from, let's say, 4.5 million to 5.2. And at this point, we haven't done a thing wrong. We haven't gone out for bids. We approved everything. We've given you everything that you've asked for, including pay you. I haven't paid you guys that much yet. But I'd like you to tell me how to go and explain this to our residents. That's just how it is. I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
The alternative is to cut scope.
Well, that's your alternative. You sold us this building, and now I'm going to get mad, and I have to actually take 2 steps back. Yeah, please.
I'm going to jump in. Okay, I think we've all expressed our displeasure, and I'm sure you get it. So, I mean, I want us to move forward, and I'm just going to tell you what I'm thinking. I do not want to cut scope on the exterior of the building. It's in our historic downtown. I don't want it to look like a mini Walmart. So I say we stay with that. I agree with Michael that we probably need a work session to make sure everybody's can digest this and then get our heads on straight and then address it at the next council meeting. I mean, I'm sorry that it came out this way, but I think we have to move forward. We have to do what we can to get the building we want.
Christy, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
I'm done.
Are you finished? Okay. Being that the earthwork came in so high, and that is the one because we have to build the wall.
The wall.
I know, as it came out, I looked at the wall. Being that it was added after the fact to this bid, if we were to look at another company to just put that wall in, do you think that we could get it cheaper? Why is it, what was it, $150,000
It's
for
a
that?
$250,000 wall.
We could, essentially you would save some money. We talked to Atlas Construction and they're at about $150,000. Now, this contractor who has that in their bid, they put their own markup on it. They probably have the digging out for it and some of the other work for it. There would be some savings. It's not gonna be, I don't know if it's gonna be real significant.
Can you remind me what the difference is then? The difference in price from one to the other? The one that's in the earthwork bid we have now, as compared to the other one that you said you talked to?
The one we could not accept, the incomplete bid that we didn't take, he was at about $145,000.
I'm sorry, tell me again what it
99
is in the bid we have now.
And the low bid that we're carrying now is the 407.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about just piecing out, putting in that section of wall, because that was,
That wall piece was about $150,000.
okay.
Is that what you calculate, or is that what the bid,
That's
what the contractors come in at?
That Atlas, a company that specializes in that kind of work, that's the cost that they provided them to include into the bid.
And then you were still $100,000 off on that earthwork.
I just,
They didn't have soil corrections either.
is that a typically standard, I'm sorry, Glenn. So for that price, that $150,000 for the bracing wall, is that, do you think that's a competitive price, or is that too high?
I think it's probably competitive for the type of wall they're putting in, because they're gonna take H-piles, they're gonna drill them and drop them in, and then put the wood timbers between them. The alternate would be to vibrate them in, which might be cheaper, but they've already done work in City of Carver, and they've already experienced issues with vibrating in H-pile.
How did they put in the bridge behind my house? Does anyone know? Because my house vibrated and we survived it, so. You know, they had to put the pilings in somehow. I don't know. That seems like a lot of money to build a wall. So I was just curious if we could find a way to do that wall cheaper than,
And that's a wall just to get the work done.
right.
Yeah, we don't even get to keep it.
Right, right.
How long would it take, just out of curiosity,
Sounds like FEMA.
to redesign this building from scratch and build us a building that we can afford?
From absolute scratch?
Well, from whatever this one isn't.
Knowing everything that we know now, that we have to put a wall in, a temporary wall.
Don't, just, how long would it take, like, we just talked to you today, knowing everything that you know now, saying, hey, boys, we gotta stick around for a weekend or two. How long would it take to redesign a building that would be within our budget?
I would say 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I mean, we could probably do the drawings ourselves in 3-4 weeks, but there's an effort of communicating what the decisions are and getting buy-in and ownership from you and from all of the city staff.
What if we made ourselves available?
And then, does this, and then go out for bid again
Yeah,
for everything?
absolutely. We're being force-fed this. We're not giving options. We're getting options to fix their issue. We're not getting options for what we're paying for from the get-go. And what I wanted to pay for from the get-go started at a $3.9 million building, went up to 4.5 when we decided to change the scope. And now we're at 5.25 and we haven't decided to change a thing. You guys did. So I'm asking, because that's an option. And I got 3 to 4 weeks to do the plans, 6 to 8 weeks for all of it, and probably just a little bit faster if we all make ourselves available to look at scope.
Brent, can you go back to the slide about the enterprise funds?
There's other architects.
So it says that we have just tell me if I'm reading this correctly. So we have $300,000 that we have not included, that we've kind of set aside that will come up for contingencies. And then it says the current project budget maintains a construction contingency of $180,000.
Right.
So that is in this, or we're considering that just being held in that $300,000?
So if you look at this is the whole entire project budget, this Kraus Anderson piece. Where the blue tab is this construction costs, on the very bottom line, there's a construction contingency. So that's 180,000, so let's say theoretically awarded the project. Once you'd encounter some soil work, or you wanted to make an add to what have you in the kitchen, that 180,000 is set aside funds to cover those costs.
Within the total project cost of the 5.2
That's
that
it.
we have?
Correct.
Okay, so that 300,000 is truly lying out in wait. It has not, none of that is touched by this at all.
Correct. If you'd use that, or use part of it, if you'd use it to cover the 217, it wouldn't impact the contingency, it would just cover what you're not getting in bond proceeds.
Okay, so we would still have the contingency worked into the plan for those unseen things.
Correct. I mean, you could, I'm not being prescriptive here, but you could theoretically increase the contingency if you wanted. I mean, that money is set aside in the capital plans within the long-term financial plan for those funds. So if you don't use that, you'll end up removing it, and then it'll be a factor of future utility rates, connection fees, et cetera. So our current connection fees and utility rates are based on having this contribution, just like you're planning for a water treatment plant, a water tower,
Yep.
trunk lines, et
So
cetera.
that won't raise if we were to dip into that 300,000?
Correct, it's planned, it's just, it hasn't been implemented.
Sure, okay.
Is this your rainy day? That's what it is.
You know, it's one of the things that, you know, you have it out there, and this isn't meant to cast stones, but when you include items like this in the budget, sometimes they just kind of get absorbed, you know, and so, from a staff perspective, we viewed this as a supplemental contingency because we are a small community and you get into a bind, where is your source of cash? We didn't propose it when we had this first go around. Now, you know, we're in a more dire situation, I would suggest.
Well, while I understand the mayor's thought about going out for bid again, I am not, or, you know, redesigning it, bringing it down for $217,000, I am not willing to do that. This is the building that we worked so hard to design, to say this is what our community needs. It's still the building our community needs. And while I am very disappointed about the bids, this is life. So to me, I'd rather move forward with a plan to do the building that we decided we wanted.
So what we can do is, excuse me, tee this up for a work session on Monday, and then plan for the May 20th council meeting to take action. I say that with not knowing if there's any additional information or requests for data that you want prior to Monday, so that we can prepare that for you, or we can ask Wold or Kraus Anderson to prepare that.
Do we own these plans yet? Are these ours? We paid for them?
I think technically per the contract, you're allowed to use them to build the building as whenever you want, yes. We retain copyright or something like that, but
So is there any additional information the council would like to have gathered for Monday?
I just wanted to double check. How long did we have to approve the bids?
60 days.
60? Okay.
Is that from April 19th? Okay.
Okay.
I would probably like to know the number for that TBD when it came to reducing the scope, the eliminate the canopy at the front of the building. I think there was a number, and then some of the things that you mentioned. I think
On page,
reducing the,
this page has it, but I didn't see any other numbers
this is the
besides
one though that I'm
those.
thinking
Oh,
about. Eliminate
okay.
the canopy has a TBD on it, and how much could potentially be saved by those two options that you, holding off on the commercial kitchen and roughing in.
Right, so a frame out of the kitchen and a frame out of the council chambers.
Yeah, and any other ideas that we might have, because I agree, I don't think that the exterior changes are, I don't think we want a janky building after all of this work, and downtown, you know, have it, it's going to be such a focal point of our downtown, so to not have it to what we have communicated with the public and our constituents, I don't know that we can take many of those options that were laid out tonight.
I'm not ready to tell anybody that we can't have a breakfast down there and that we can't hold a council meeting.
That's not what I'm saying. I just want to know what the numbers are, so that we know. Yeah, it would be ridiculous to open a building with a community space and not have people bring in hot plates and, you know, but
Crack pots.
Yeah.
Pots.
But let's lay it out all on the table. You're offering some suggestions as too, so. As far as the contingency goes, are you still comfortable that the 180 is a solid number? I mean, this number keeps increasing and increasing. Are we comfortable that that's a safe contingency amount?
I think it's safe until, I mean, once we've got the building up and enclosed, we should be good. Up until that point, there's still some wild card things, like Pat mentioned. I mean, we don't know exactly what's underneath that building once we remove it. The geotech could come out and say, yeah, let's take out another 10 feet, because it's all, silty, it's all wet from the levee, we don't know yet.
It could be silty, it is in a river valley.
Yeah.
Guess we'll see.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody need any other information at this point?
If I could answer one question, you were asking about the canopy. I did get some numbers in later in the day, so they didn't get included, and we're right around 15,000.
Okay. Thank you.
1,000.
I just want to make a comment. So if we dip into that 300,000 that we had held back in the enterprise fund, we can have everything as is today in the plan that we had originally wanted to go forward with.
Correct.
Until the soil's coming.
For only about 2/3 of that 300,000, because it's like 217,000 that we need.
Right. And there's already a contingency built in.
Right, so it could turn out to be less,
Right.
depending on
I'm just saying, if we dipped
our
into that,
soils.
we would have the building that we want. It doesn't raise anything. Okay.
They're gonna make it easy for you boys.
I don't think they thought this was easy.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.